Simple woman humiliated by restaurant owner, not knowing who her billionaire husband is. A moment of judgment would soon become a lesson in true power and dignity. Emily Roberts lived between two worlds, a deliberate choice that defined her entire existence. To the casual observer, she appeared remarkably ordinary. A woman in her mid-30s with a part-time job at a local community center, dressed in understated clothing that revealed nothing of her true circumstances. What most didn't know was that her husband, David Roberts, was one of the most influential CEOs in the country. But Emily's simplicity wasn't about hiding. It was a profound statement of purpose. While other wealthy wives navigated social circles and charity galas, she chose impact over appearance. Her work with community programs spoke louder than any designer label or expensive accessory. Every day she walked a careful line, connected to immense wealth, yet committed to understanding the struggles of those far removed from such privilege. Today's lunch at the upscale restaurant wasn't just a meal. It was another chapter in a quiet mission of understanding, of bridging worlds that rarely intersected. Little did she know how dramatically that mission would be tested. The restaurant existed as more than a mere physical space. It was a microcosm of unspoken social hierarchies, a landscape where power dynamics played out in whispers and loaded glances. Frank Williams understood this language intimately. He had built his reputation not just on the quality of his cuisine, but on his ability to curate an environment of exclusive refinement. Emily Rodriguez represented everything that challenged his carefully constructed world. Her presence was deliberate, not a mistake, not an intrusion, but a calculated moment of professional engagement. Years of community work had taught her that spaces were never truly neutral. They were battlegrounds of perception, territories marked by invisible boundaries of class, race, and social expectation. Frank approached her table with the precision of a predator. Each step was a statement, a choreographed display of social gatekeeping. His expensive Italian loafers clicked against the marble floor, a rhythmic declaration of ownership and authority. "This section," he began, his voice a carefully modulated instrument of exclusion, "is reserved for our more discerning clientele." The word discerning hung in the air, a euphemism so transparent it was almost comical. Emily had heard these coded languages her entire professional life. They were never about the actual space, but about who was deemed worthy of occupying it. The maitre d' watched with the practiced neutrality of someone trained to maintain social facades. His discomfort was palpable, a human barometer measuring the rising tension between institutional racism and individual dignity. "I have a reservation," Emily responded. Not a plea, a statement. Her voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who understood power dynamics far more deeply than Frank could comprehend. It wasn't about winning an argument. It was about refusing to be erased. Frank's laugh was a weapon, sharp, intentional, designed to draw attention and humiliate. "Reservation," he repeated, scanning the room, inviting other diners to participate in his performance of ridicule. For what exactly? The nearby clientele, mostly wealthy, mostly white, shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with a mix of curiosity and growing unease. A few older women exchanged knowing glances, recognizing this ritualistic display of social gatekeeping. "Community center outreach programs," Emily said, her voice steady. Frank moved closer. His expensive cologne became a form of psychological warfare, a sensory reminder of the economic disparities between them. "This establishment," he enunciated with surgical precision, "isn't typically used for such discussions." The subtext was crystal clear. You don't belong here. But Emily Rodriguez was not someone who could be easily dismissed or intimidated. Her years of working with marginalized communities had constructed a resilience that went far beyond mere resistance. It was a profound, almost philosophical understanding of systemic barriers, how they were constructed, maintained, and ultimately how they could be dismantled. "The reservation," she repeated, "is under Roberts." A microscopic shift occurred. Something flickered in Frank's eyes, a momentary recognition, quickly masked by pride and deeply ingrained prejudices. The restaurant held its collective breath. Silverware suspended mid-air. Conversations evaporated. Everyone sensed they were witnessing more than a mere confrontation. This was a moment of social reckoning. Emily didn't move, didn't argue. Her very stillness became an act of profound resistance. Frank's face reddened. This was not how these encounters were supposed to unfold. A woman like her, seemingly simple, unassuming, was expected to shrink, to apologize, to vanish. But Frank Williams was about to learn that appearances could be monumentally, catastrophically deceiving, and Emily was about to show him exactly why. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Help us reach this milestone and build a community that believes in standing up against judgment. Hit subscribe now and be part of something bigger. The moment David Roberts entered the restaurant, time seemed to stand still. His presence was more than physical. It was a force that recalibrated the entire room's energy. Unlike the dramatic entrances of typical CEOs, David moved with a quiet, deliberate grace that spoke of genuine power. Frank Williams' confident posture began to crumble. The man who moments ago had been so certain in his control now looked like a child caught in an impossible moment. His eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but David's steady gaze locked him in place. "I believe," David said softly, his voice carrying without raising in volume. "My wife was in the middle of her meeting." The other diners watched, transfixed. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a lesson in dignity, in the invisible lines of respect that truly define social interactions. David turned to the maitre d', his tone calm but absolute. "I'd like you to bring my wife a menu, and I'd like our host," he looked directly at Frank, "to be the one to serve her." The request hung in the air, not a suggestion, a directive that would reshape the entire dynamic of the restaurant. Frank's world began to visibly shrink. The man who had been so certain of his power now looked small, insignificant. His designer suit, his carefully cultivated attitude of superiority, all of it suddenly seemed paper-thin. Emily sat, a small smile playing at the corner of her mouth. She didn't need to say a word. Her husband's arrival had already rewritten the narrative of the moment. Here's a deeper, more nuanced version of the chapter. The moment David Roberts entered the restaurant, the very atmosphere changed. It wasn't a dramatic entrance. It was a systematic dismantling waiting to unfold. Frank Williams, who moments ago had been the undisputed master of his domain, now looked like a man about to be surgically dissected. But this would be no ordinary takedown. David moved with the calculated precision of a surgeon, his every step a deliberate instrument of justice. The other diners sensed something profound was about to happen, a reckoning that went far beyond a simple lunch. "Serve her," David said, his voice a razor-sharp whisper that cut through the restaurant's elegant facade. Frank's world began to crumble. "Not through violence, through exposure. I want you," David continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the restaurant, "to understand exactly what you've done." He pulled out a folder, crisp, pristine, the kind of document that speaks of meticulous preparation. "Frank Williams," David announced, "owner of this establishment, let me introduce you to the consequences of your actions." The folder opened. Documents cascaded onto the table. Your restaurant has violated equal employment and service regulations no less than 17 times in the past 3 years, David said. Each word was a precision strike. I've been investigating for months. The restaurant fell into a horrified silence. The Department of Civil Rights will be most interested in these documented instances of discrimination, David continued. Each one carefully tracked, each one with supporting evidence. Frank's face drained of color, but David wasn't finished. I'm not just going to expose you, he said. I'm going to dismantle everything you've built. He turned to the other diners. This establishment has systematically discriminated against employees and customers of color. Not just today, for years. A woman at a nearby table gasped. Another stood up, her voice trembling. I work in HR. These practices are illegal. David's gaze swept the room. Not just illegal, morally reprehensible. Frank tried to speak. Couldn't. You'll serve my wife, David said, not as a performance, as the first step in your public accountability. The maitre d' approached, visibly shaken. Mr. Williams, he whispered, what should I do? He will serve me, Emily said quietly. Her voice carried a strength that needed no volume. Frank's hands shook as he approached with a menu. Each step was a public deconstruction of his own power. The daily special, Emily said. David's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, a gesture of support, of solidarity. But the true punishment was just beginning. By the end of today, David announced, this restaurant will be under new management, my management, and every single employee who has been discriminated against will be offered a position with full back pay and compensation. The room erupted. Some diners cheered, others looked shocked. Frank stood broken, a monument to his own systemic failures. You don't just lose your restaurant, David said softly. You lose your reputation, your entire professional identity. Emily watched, not with anger, with a profound, quiet understanding that this was never about revenge. This was about revelation, about exposing systems designed to marginalize, about turning moments of potential humiliation into opportunities for transformative justice. The restaurant, once a symbol of exclusion, would become a beacon of inclusion. Frank Williams would become a case study in accountability, and Emily, she would continue her work, quietly, persistently, changing the world, one moment of dignified resistance at a time. The daily special arrived, a simple meal, a profound revolution. The aftermath of that afternoon reverberated far beyond the restaurant's walls. What began as a moment of potential humiliation transformed into a catalyst for broader social reflection. David and Emily Roberts didn't celebrate their victory. Instead, they saw it as another step in an ongoing journey of dismantling systemic barriers. The restaurant, now renamed Second Chance, became more than just a dining establishment. It became a living testament to the possibility of genuine transformation. Frank Williams, stripped of his previous power, began a journey of profound personal reckoning. Under David's leadership, the restaurant implemented comprehensive training. Programs focused on diversity, inclusion, and unconscious bias. Every employee, from servers to management, underwent extensive workshops that challenged long-held prejudices. Emily continued her community work with renewed purpose. The incident became a powerful platform to discuss systemic discrimination, not as a moment of triumph, but as an opportunity for collective growth. Months later, an unexpected development emerged. Frank Williams, humbled and transformed, approached Emily with a proposal to collaborate on community outreach programs. His journey wasn't about redemption, but about genuine understanding. The local media picked up the story, not as a sensational headline, but as a nuanced exploration of how personal accountability could drive social change. David and Emily became advocates for a different kind of social justice, one built on understanding, not punishment. Their approach wasn't about public shaming. It was about creating spaces for genuine dialogue, for breaking down the invisible. Barriers that divide communities. The restaurant became a symbol of something larger. A reminder that change doesn't happen through grand gestures, but through consistent, compassionate action. As Emily often said, dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you recognize in every human being. Their story spread, not as a tale of victory, but as a blueprint for how individual moments can spark broader societal transformation. Some stories end. Some continue to ripple outward, touching lives in ways we can never fully understand. This was one of those stories, a testament to the power of seeing beyond surface appearances, of choosing understanding over judgment, of recognizing our shared humanity. Hit subscribe now and witness how one moment can shatter expectations. We're just steps from 1,000 subscribers who believe stories like Emily's can change everything. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and join a community that stands against judgment, celebrates dignity, and believes one voice can transform the world. Turn on notifications. Don't miss the next story that could change your perspective forever. Have you faced a moment that redefined everything? Share your story below and be part of a movement that says no to prejudice and yes to human potential.